docs and stuff. Cool. Awesome. What is meaning? Philosophy ponders this question without ever interrogating the meaning of it. The presumption of the static misunderstands the blurry nature of the world that renders meaning the product of connections balance. The body's meaning is dependent on the other bodies that forms an assumption with the way it is meaning until it connects with another machine. With the cyclist becomes a vehicle and a gallery becomes artwork. The body's no different when it connects to the bicycle becomes a cyclist to a secret smoker and impacts. A point takes out something of the subject because we prove that identity is constantly shaped or reshape our interaction with the world. B point is to disprove the bindingness of our conception of the subject. You can prove that subjects don't have emotions or worldly interactions, and only affect can account for the indeterminacy of the ethical moment. Ethic comes about when the previous structures of thought are appended by new situations with new actors, traditional ways of thinking define the terms of morality so as to justify themselves, causes us to be complicit in a flawed epistemology that necessitates that obligation and action can only be derived from affect. Bryant. Traditional ethics begins with determined situations and then so to say for a role to evaluate action. The question is not how crisis can be ameliorated by existing principles, the ethical encounter where principles no longer hold. Rather, the question is how situations must be recomposed in response from the perspective of the event as it unfolds, composed of all sorts of heterogeneous actors, non-human objects act all the time, modifying the situation. But affective fields are not pure. Whiteness a priori constitutes the conditions by which subjects come to be in and navigate the world. Positioning blackness as always already non-subject and thus creating structuring orientations in which the potentiality of blackness is ontologically foreclosed. E&C. White orientation gives a sense of indefinite spatiality of the right to ostracize those who don't naturally belong. Black is the usurped body, a mere object that occupies space. Blackness expresses a relation to the world in the form of I cannot. Whiteness has become structuring orientation. Performances presuppose the not-self in the form of others' existence. And the standard and rule of God is good for the video that formally methodologically engages in affective accidents. My body is always already bound up in systems of whiteness position, specific identity categories, qualities, and parts. And one takes out utility, a point of object, a way to measure pain and pleasure that is applicable to all subjects because it's an emotional response. And B point, pain and pleasure, both shapes subjects as aiming to avoid one in favor of the other is incoherent. And two, affect is key to material change because it's a question of how we understand other subjects' feelings in accordance with their own coalition building presumes that we can A point empathize with another person and B point collectively direct our actions towards a certain goal. Part two is the method. We advocate for methodology of black rage not only as a form of engaging with debate but also as a method by which plea bargaining in the criminal justice system is abolished. I'll grant you links to any topic what it says is I defend the implementation of the affirmative and an individual and affective sense. And the violence enacted on black folks in the CJS is widespread and plea bargaining is one of the master's favorite tools. The affirmative who strips the master away from that tool and embraces the fed up nigger within, similar to the Black Panthers who followed Oakland police officers around to protect their community. We aren't necessarily a reform of the CJS, but rather a demand on the criminal justice system that refused to be ignored. Duke and Lawson. Well-established fact that racial and ethnic disparities are astronomical despite being only 30% of the national population. Like surprise, 20% of people arrested. Significant disparities were found in plea bargaining compared to similarly situated white defendants. Black and Latino defendants were more likely to receive custodial plea bargains than to be incarcerated. Criminal justice decision-making has been long described by social scientists and legal scholars as racialized and unequal. Part three is the offense. Black rage is more than just me yelling at specific mechanism by which to understand material relations and the relationship to the non-material. We rework whiteness's control over action, carrying MLK away from the peace-loving minister, embracing the fed-up, threatening emotional affirmation of rage away from the slave song to protest. Rage is multiplicative, different for different folks in different situations. One thing fucking shit than the ability to performatively engage in rage is in the will to act of psychological violence against my body. Jordan 1. Rage is a burning moment that sounds of bullets of being rifle ready to explode. Agrees in our German reparation of sounds. Rage is electric. Rage borders upon the boundaries of psychological meaning. Rage is incredibly powerful, but it's a very emotional one. It's not supposed to reside within black nation, strictly forbidden due to the notion that listen and action are the only way to respond. Black relationships, directly political movements proven by a lie and nationalism. When the school of protest goes on turning the other cheek, rage becomes political and intertwined with the material to create an opening in the social fabric. And net benefits. One is possibility. Our method opens up a space to use it for state text resist oppression. The question that one is only too much possibility, focusing not just on the outcome, but with the decision to act in the first place. Sort of two. The politics and possibility of political strategy and the reorganization of society is to become comfortable with the possibility of failure, focus upon the decision to act with the intention that action may result in something it requires that adversity attacks within a complex web of relationality. And two is survival strategy. Even if institutions are affected, my method isn't best survival as the first priority because it controls the internal into engaging and any other methods raises a proven survival strategy via the CC internal case study 2 warrants 8 point is physically she used rage as a little method of survival killing for white supremacists attack her with a pair of scissors B point psychological rage and method to resist the psychological violence that institutions graft onto the bodies of black folks. And 3 is collectivization. And a bit of reason for our framework because it motivates other bodies to be active in the movement when the wake of the CC attack the community at large motivated to support a trans black woman via things like the support CC committee and Block 23. Rage operates on all levels. Individual rage can be a form of self-committing by way of form of self-love by way of self-protection. Was in the case of CC's message, CC's use of black rage have the ability to collect rights or struggle, effectively inform struggles with other non-beings to highlight atrocities on mass scale. Rage fill the gaps between different non-beings, allowing for an affective feeling that individuals' liberation being brought together. Rage brought about situated solidarity. Black rage made research respondents feel that a new world needs to the old possible space of collectivity that defies forces of separation and isolation. And we control the internal link to the degree my body, my blackness is not one in this space or other educational spaces. White supremacy operates on the exclusion of blackness as dangerous and reproduces this exclusion in the context of the debate-based absent analysis of the way in which black bodies are excluded or doomed to recreate oppressive system. Schneider. Black students are destructive to civil society. There is something organic to black positionality that makes it essential to destruction in civil society. Blackness has to be contained and managed in order to protect white supremacy. White supremacy needs reproduction of social relations of power in order to maintain its subjective advantage. When blackness becomes identified as anti-healthful notions of work, white supremacy is able to unleash its fury upon the black body. Self-assertion outside of these parameters is the greatest threat to white supremacist modes of social reproduction, but part reproduction. Impacts one takes out the theory is one as a form of excluding blackness and as intrinsically dangerous, which is an obvious form of anti-black violence, and two, independently affirms and our framing. Schneider says we disrupt social modes of reproduction through self-assertion. Our method of black rage is self-assertion in a way that explicitly makes whiteness uncomfortable. I didn't read the last part. Yep.
Cool. So, what is the benefit of using your roll ballot? Why should it be important?
What's your question?
Why is your roll ballot uniquely important in debate?
I would say that deconstructing whiteness is important in debate because it controls the internal influence and access to places like debate.
Okay.
Like yeah.
So, can you read me the text of the roll ballot?
Sure. Let's go. The roll ballot specifically is to vote for the debater that best performatively and methodologically engages in affective acts of deconstructing whiteness.
Okay, so how do I engage in that? So
sure.
is black rage the only thing that can engage with that roll of ballot, or how do I engage with an affective deconstruction?
No, there are multiple ways that you can engage with our roll of ballot that don't require you to endorse a method of rage. You could read things like PES, which I wouldn't recommend, but that would criticize our method for being too optimistic. You could read things like just straight up to lose, which would depart from our method as a framework and say that we should embrace a form of identity politics. You could read reasons as to why rage necessarily isn't a good survival strategy for black folks. There's plenty of play out there for
why
that.
Why is effective rage a good method? So your alt is using affect.
Every net benefit that we have in the app is a reason why our method is good. But you want me to go through the net benefits specifically? Because I would love to.
No thanks. How do you abolish plea bargaining in the criminal justice system?
We garner our offense from the defense of our method. But we say that the way that we should abolish plea bargaining in the criminal justice system is via the method of black rage.
Okay, so you don't garner any offense from a post-fiat action, of abolishing.
Sure. I will defend the implementation of the affirmative, and I'll grant you any links to any of the top sets that you want.
No, I'm just asking if you gain offense off of that for the app. You said that in your speech, but do you gain offense under your roll of ballot for that?
I mean, every part of the app is offense for us, right? There's not one specific part of the app that's not going to be offense for me, but the majority of the offense we garner is from the majority of the offense that we garner comes from our method, not the post-fiat enactment.
Okay, where do you think that the inaction of abolishing plea bargaining in the CHAS, even through rage, where do you prove that that's a good idea?
Through abolishing plea bargaining?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say our Lucan lawsuit cards indicates that plea bargaining is a really racialized structure, and we say that we should embrace black rage as a method to resist that racialized structure.
Okay. So what is rage? What does it mean to engage in rage?
Sure, I think our Jordan 1 evidence contextualizes this really well. Jordan 1 implicates that rage is an affective response to oppression that differs from individual to individual. What we know about rage are the three net benefits that follows. One that it creates a space where we can use a multitude of different tactics to resist oppression. It creates this sense of possibility for black resistance. Two is that it's a good survival strategy for black folks, which is historically and empirically proven. And then three is that it is able to collectivize other folks to get involved in our movement.
All right, I'll take that. Sorry. why affect isn't whiteness? Like,
I'm
what's
sorry?
What's the warrant in the card? The Yancey card?
The warrant in the Yancey card?
Yeah.
It's that like whiteness, it creates like a structuring orientation in the world whereby it like tells black folks to take up this position of like I cannot, or I take up a position of I cannot or ontological death, and whiteness is what becomes the norm. We say that this is an affective relationship, and that affective relationship renders affect impure in a sense. And it doesn't render it impure that like we should reject affect as a whole, but rather that we have to solve for the affective relationship between blackness and whiteness.
What is affect?
Sure, affect is a descriptive claim, a descriptive and prescriptive claim about the way that the world works and how we should act regarding that. It says that subjects and objects are defined by their interactions with other subjects and objects. They form assemblages with each other. That's the Mallin's evidence. It implicates that the only way that we can act are based off those the assemblages that we form with others.
What's an assemblage?
An assemblage is just like a connection between an object and subject, a subject and subject, an object and an object.
Okay, so how does affect like deconstruct those kinds of like assemblages? Like
it's not a question of like deconstructing all assemblages. It's a question of deconstructing the way that whiteness has like a structuring orientation towards the world, and all of the reasons as to why we necessarily deconstruct white supremacy, or reasons as to why we're good for black folk, or reasons as to why we solve and move from it. Oh, I might be a little bit too tall. I don't know. I've been told that I'm too tall. So.
It's fine. The order is NC in all. That's just going to be like turns to the app. We probably want to fill out a separate sheet of paper, and then an overview that's on the app that's also like quite long.
Is the overview on a separate sheet of paper, or is the overview on?
You can flow it on the app, but for organizational purposes, you might want to just flow it on a separate sheet because it's going to be pretty long.
Is there going to be anything on the app problem?
Yeah, I'll do that after. Okay, Joe's ready? Alright.
Sure, let's do it.
Aggregating the criteria self-identifies the individual's illustration of the movements of the body, self-measurements, and discriminate terms of commit policies to shape how argumentation happens through the proposition of the form. After finding the employment scarcity, no one proposing anything for person trying to make exclusive use of his physical and not proposed, specifically justified in the operator for anyone that presupposes that anyone disputes with rightly committed practical contradiction. This versus contradictions are logical impossibilities. Anything short of a contradiction can be corresponds some possible world tenses and most impossible and uniquely comes before the game is impossible to gauge what the method of control of the battle without self-ownership means. You can't engage in activity, you can't gain weight in so far as you don't have ownership over your own body to make those decisions about how to engage in my thesis. And so contention that the abolition of slavery violates self-ownership slavery is a voluntary agreement among agents who exchange an entitlement that legitimately belong to be engaged in pursuit of net benefit of the agent of abolition of slavery arbitrarily imposes freedom on age to make these exchanges. Scott, he freedom to exchange entitlements and pursuits of freedom of contract for such a state freedom and supported by the norms of autonomy parties denied freedom to exchange entitlements and suffer that necessary constraints on their choices that undermine the value of entitlements. The right to self-freedom entitlement can be trade defense, but you don't have to exchange and entitlement for certain benefits what has been prohibition party on a freedom of contract between even if he's saying that plea bargaining is a racist concept, he is assuming that black folks don't have the ability to make those decisions for themselves. Can't decide whether plea bargaining is bad for them rather than abolishing plea bargaining. We should abolish that behavior behind plea bargaining. Plea bargaining is a rational choice. It doesn't depend on the voices of anyone else. That's the system of recognizing self-ownership. Can't justify living from middle class Margellis. Plea bargaining starts in the North Pole of the North Pole of autonomy constitution preserves the right to plead not guilty or not guilty to the defendant. The defendant because the guilty to obtain such defendant such a less strongly the defendant will be less likely to obtain pleading guilty by exercising the choice to plead. The defendant opens up that will be available without pleading. Second off, the terms. Turn your lines of light or co-opted into ones that the intensity of the act is directed against impression of the form is reactive after instead of a joyous affirmation to the positive act. This turn the act and shows it. Your terrible method, sigillus, Victoria 72. There's a full potential way of presenting these lines of sort of creation of fabric of social reality. They can tell say made a note of the emulation of feeling of the standing of the violated deserted range within empty reckless target value. Problem set in the silent sense, so only the sound of my own believing myself. Emulation was something that started and drunk me. Line of flight with the more embrace of coming to the back was defeated after having destroyed something. Line of flight across the wall connecting with other lines argumenting its valence, turning into destruction, abolition of pure and simple compassion of abolition. This turns the line of flight into a line of death. The joy is going to negativity is bad, going to negative is an act that moves away from the politics of reactivity, opening itself to the flux set of activity. If you want to break away from the assemblages of whiteness in you're always going to be gaining growth 7. Why is it important to be affirmed critique produce something that we problematicize? We need to find out more what's wrong with the position. We need to understand primarily what's right with the position. How can we become transformed? We need more joys in the work we do. Life we need something where we can affirm. We need to affirm the activities that gives joy. Thinking of joy, we need to affirm the joys in the kind of life that we are looking for. We need to affirm things where we can simply affirm the world is bleak enough. Affirmation can give us a new world, a new body can become dark. To lose produces black fungibility and appropriation positionality of blackness to the archive of black theory, while simultaneously erasing the mention of anti-blackness theory ensures the reproduction of vitamins standard 16. The most obvious flaw in the omission of the reference to African customers of allocating the individuals using precisely language that relies on the negativity of approximately a decade culps wherever the omission of the such important material is troubling dark blues remains white, ultra white dark. Gillis appears to be governed by the logical vitamins potentially preserved by effacing itself. This is specifically going to be a turn of the rule about because that means that the best way for rejecting these subject vitamins is always going to be a joyous affirmation because that's exactly what whiteness wants. Whiteness wants you whiteness wants oppressed people to wallow in destructive, wallow in this oppression rather than joyously affirming their right lives. Now the overreach decay. Overeducating should he says he should go to the new methodologically destroy break something assemblage with whiteness and the winning the role of the ballot isn't sufficient. You need to win at A, the basic question of methods and B, the method the best way to solve the impact side acting the counter method of perspective self-ownership means that you vote for me at A, I justify why you have the jurisdiction to vote on method on the day of B. I win my counter method C, why asking for the ballot of navigating methods ballot. They all have to win all 4 premises and the development of the role of ballot against its argument because it indicates the role of ballot in the first place. First, they never justify why the judge has the jurisdiction to vote on the structure of the role of ballot justifies why there's an particular ballot. By definition, you have to submit a ballot rule 1 or lost. There is never a broader political mission applied, but ballots mean the default rule of ballot voting for it who best affirms some the resolution. This also this is just a starting point for talking about citizens and is key to inclusion because we know that we're going to be debating the resolution for the lawsuit. It's a starting point for our discussion. Thus, you vote for people say have the jurisdiction to vote for them, and even if they want to have the jurisdiction to vote on method, means you vote for whatever method you prefer. It means you day by one, and if you start with prefer counter method 1 by firm justifies why pressure ballot which combats is capable of examining badness in order to method and endorse it as a power. True, it may be used inherently affected by bigotry. By just one question about it provides a message that it cannot be refuted, and therefore it's more perceived to combating oppression by firm as a meaning of normal terms. The idea that something is radicalized in order communication works with can be reduced to the descriptive standard or narrow method. The method collapses back to my affirm. So you affirm he literally sets the applicant to the descriptive standard. So he buys into that, and even if they want to use value method that's really good, they have a better method. Reject them because they ask for value, which is bad. All these independent ways one speech about one turn the purpose of critiques is transcendent right here. So creating a shift away from stuff the power sources by asking for the valid failed to be transcended and further oppressive power sources and claim that to be implicit in a double line either A, they don't change the system at all, they shouldn't. Whether or B, they can change the system by rejecting the value of the power sources for which they should win by 2 turns and getting the value of messages to be successful message individuals who want to win the lots of individuals. This is probably pop out cut the third term there. This is the reason why you can reading the 1AC should be enough. It's not the reason why he should get valid. If he's saying he's talking he's already done it, and he's already done the one in the 1AC. It's not just for why you should vote for the ballot. And on the affect arguments. 1, rage has to be spontaneous and rage runs. You're generating rage automated. Your performance doesn't link to the arguments. Rage is an emotional reaction to responsible adjustment. They unlikely they fall into rage immediately before accident. They undercut the advocacy of rage is something you can gin up whenever you want to represent rage in the manufactured, which is uniquely bad on the role of ballot because it makes rage something artificial rather than something that is genuine anger. The system or a way to combat the system. 2, affect is something that occurs and you can't create that affect on hand. So incoherence should be something produced. And affect or when around me, affect is just something that happens to you. It's not something that we can actively try and create on the role of ballot. My method for deconstructing whiteness is always going to be better because whiteness specifically wants you to be angry, wants you to wallow in that darkness that the terms on the case are talking about. But my method is always going, my role about is always going to be better because it like have a starting point for discussion of like engaging whiteness or like deconstructing whiteness.
Okay. Starting cross. How does testing the truth of the resolution a better starting point for discussions of whiteness than a roll of the ballot, which literally says we should have discussions of whiteness, about whiteness?
Okay, so it's saying that in order to like have these discussions, like so it comes as a prior question, right? So in order to like make sure that everyone can like engage in these discussions, we have to have something, the common ground that we're talking about. We can talk about like how the criminal justice system like.
Okay, so is the warrant for why we use truth testing because there needs to be like some stasis point to engage in the debate? Is that the only justification that you give for truth testing?
That's the only preclusion justification I give. The other one is that.
Why? Okay, that doesn't answer my original question, which is why does that solve better for whiteness?
It's just saying that we're providing a starting point for discussing whiteness.
Okay,
right?
why is that like uniquely a good starting point? The last like 15 seconds of the one in C was saying that your roll of the ballot solves better for whiteness. I'm asking you why
Sorry,
is
I meant
testing
like a better starting point. What I'm saying is better solves or like better deconstructs whiteness rather is the turns on the case. Like
okay. The turns on the case.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the turns on the case. What part of the aff is dark delusion?
Okay, so what the aff is saying is that we should use affect to like create rage or to have that kind of rage. Oh, sorry. So like
affect is essentially a descriptive claim about the way that subjects and objects interact with each other. How do you escape that descriptive claim? It's like, so how could we say anything other than we need an affective starting point? If you conceded that it's like a binding descriptive claim.
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
That's fine. Let's go back to my original question, and I want you to answer it straight up. What about the aff is dark delusion?
Oh, okay. So the aff is dark delusion, or like because specifically it says that you should engage like in rage, like you should engage in like a negative.
So
affect.
what part of Andrew Culp's book says that we should engage in like rage specifically, and specifically black rage? Andrew Culp doesn't talk about black people. I read his book. So like, what part of the aff that is specific to like affective relationships between whiteness and blackness is dark delusion?
What part of the
you point to me like one part, give me one example of how the aff is dark delusion.
One example of how the aff is because you engage in rage, like you engage in the negative affect of rage, right?
Not. Have you read the book? Okay, let's go up to the deluge card that you read. You say that like rage is a reactive affect. Where do you justify that rage is reactive? Like, what's the warrant for this?
So rage isn't necessarily a reactive affect because as like a result of this oppression, like as a reaction to this oppression, as a survival.
So can people not necessarily take like action to preemptively let's go to the NC. What is constitutive of like having self-ownership? Like, what do you need to be to have self-ownership? Yeah.
To have self-ownership, you have to have like the individual. It says it like right. You have to have the individual association of like the movements of your body, have the ability to control your will and bodily emotions. That's what I mean.
The ability to control your will. All right.
Yeah.
So essentially, you have to have some form of ontology to engage in self-ownership, right?
I'm not sure what that means.
Okay, that's fine. Carly, be honest here. Is the argument that you read in the overview about justifying methods, is that a nib? Come on.
Well, I don't know what you mean by it.
Is it a necessary or necessary but insufficient burden in that if I beat that the judge does have the jurisdiction to vote on methods, it's still not sufficient to affirm?
Yeah,
yes,
but
it is. Okay, thanks. That's good. Thank you. Okay, stop prep. 2 minutes left. I am saving and sending the doc now. There's only 2 new cards. But yeah, the order's gonna be case proper, case dump. Actually, hold on.
So the turn's second.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure where the new cards are gonna be, so I'll signpost those.
Okay.
Probably on the dump. Okay. Hold on a second. What is this?
You said that.
I'm like 20. Sorry, I'm having computer issues like finding the document. Give me a sec.
If you want to copy and paste something like that in the body.
Is that okay with you? Okay. Sorry, I'm gonna have to like copy and paste it. It's not gonna be like in a Word doc. No, it's not like the best formatting, but that's it.
You should make sure that D highlights.
What?
It's like D highlights.
Oh, is it? It's still, it kept the highlighting, but there's no underlining, but I only read highlighting that. Let me know when you all like actually get the dog. Okay. Is everyone else good as well? Yeah. Okay. Extend the while is over the various form the methodologically agent and affective accidation of oppression, Brian implicates an action obligation can only be derived from affective relationships with them. That's where a certain point our model of being empowers people to make real the world changing to change their orientation towards oppression. Additionally, prefer one is the context, the evidence of being a prescriptive claim that can be implicated in a debate space that's the most applicable to the activity we work here for, and that's the most important justification because it's contextualized to this activity and to its purpose of doing it is to teach us to be better people. Our model debate teaches the skills to be, also formulate successful resistance strategies when we live debate which outweigh on A point duration because it lasts our entire lives and B point magnitude because it's a question of value of life in the first place means we're always going to be outweighing their truth testing justifications that let's go to the proper you can extend the framing with specifically the B point under balance which implicates that affect is binding there's no way out of this and independently takes out the NC proper because it proves that their epistemology is just flawed. They think that subjectivity is static. We say that no, that subjectivity and objectivity is always fluid. Also, Also, we're always going to come before the NC. You can extend our Yancey analysis, which indicates that blackness is always positioned as with an expression to the word of I cannot necessarily a position of object. It means we don't have access to the 1NC's method. They have conceded that in order to have access, you need to perform ontology control over your own will. We say that all of this is necessarily denied from black folks now. But you can also extend the also extend the Brian. All right, now let's go to the standard. You can cross-apply the bindingness argument as a reason as to why we're going to come before. We're going to come before their standard of truth testing. Or come before another reason we'll come before their rule about truth testing. Now, you say let's go to the case terms. Off your first turn, you say that rage is reactive affect. A point is that's just false. No, rage is a proactive affect. Let's say that we should engage. We call on black folks to engage in rage as a proactive way to prevent oppression. Sure, it has some reactive elements to it, but it is not purely reactive. Also, B point is that. No, it's fine. And now go to the next argument. You say that essentially that negativity is bad. But A point is that this is a complete misreading of the loose and say that negativity is bad, rather than that negative ontology is bad now. Which means that you don't understand your own arguments. Also, there's no warning in this card now. Let's go to the C point of Dr. Luce. We say that nothing about the F is Dr. Luce, so there's absolutely no link. The F is departs from the Luce after affect theory. Too. Let's go to the case dump. The other case turns. You say that we never justify why the judges have a jurisdiction. You say we never justify why the judges have a jurisdiction to vote on this is functionally a nib. This was conceded in cross-exam. I say you should reject arbitrary rules and things like nibs that force black debaters to engage in intellectual gymnastics as an attempt to distance the conversation away from our materiality. Smith 13. Competitors attempt to win by rushing to abstraction distance the conversation from the materiality of that black debaters are forced to deal with every day. Community norms would have competitors do intellectual gymnastics to make up rules to accuse black communities of breaking to escape hard conversations, to harder conversations, and white anti-racism and white activism has an extreme solvency deficit, which is that it's predicated on an economy of gratitude where oppressed people are supposed to be grateful that white people want to work for what they think is our benefit, and that they should be rewarded for their access. Mindset makes white people the most valued people above all others, and makes people of color swatters of the project of life. There's also an implication here that even if they win their argument, you can vote for them because of the lead to economy of gratitude. You can flow this as a direct turn to all of our arguments about why their method necessarily solves better now. Also, you say you read this turn about us calling for the ballot. A point is that it's terminally non-unique. You also call for the ballot. B point is the ballot forces reflection on your practices in the debate space. Now, let's go back to the F proper real quick. You can extend the survival strategy. Never feels full conceded implicit. When coming out of the 1AC, which is that survival strategy, survival controls the internally to engaging any other methods means that we are always going to be outweighing. We're always going to be precluding. You've also conceded explicit solvency there.
Okay, I'll take prep starting now.
How much prep do you?
I used 222 first, so. 244, sorry. Yeah. Order is first on stand. Thank you. Orders same as last speech. NC turns overview case.
Okay. Ready?
Okay. Thursday?
Yeah.
Cool. First, you can see the argument on self-ownership. You can say how far the self-ownership commitment of all sorts of change in order to even have any kind of exchange within the app, in order to engage in any kind of app at all. We first have to have self-ownership. This is conceded out of the last method that uniquely comes before the game because it's impossible to engage in the method without self-ownership. Even if you're saying that affect is something that we're ascribed to in order to create any kind of affect or in order to engage in rage, which is the method that he advocates, we first have to have self-ownership by the extent of contention that the abolition of theory violates self-ownership. He's defensive. He's going to defend the abolition of theory insofar as it's taking away the ability of black folks to make decisions about whether or not they want to plea bargain by themselves. And then it's always going back. He doesn't extend the argument. He doesn't extend the arguments about plea bargaining. Plea bargaining last week. He extend the Scott Margalis for the plea bargaining is a rational choice. It doesn't depend on the choice of anyone else. So a system that wants self-ownership can never depend on other features from bridges. He's conceding the Hop analysis, which means that my framework necessarily has to come as a prerequisite. So you care about that first. Now go on to the terms. Extend the Lucian Gotari 72 card that your lines of thought are always going to be co-opted, and he says that he defends it as a proactive way to avoid oppression, but it's only a proactive way to respond to oppression. But insofar as he's still responding to oppression, he's still even if he's proactively responding to oppression in the future, the reason that he needs to do that, the reason that he's using rage to do that is because of oppression that has happened in the past. So this is necessarily always going to be reactive. Extend that we affirm a joy of affirmation through positive aspects. You can also extend the reason why this necessarily wants you to wallow in oppression, and joy is a way to affirm life rather than be negative about it. Extend the growth 97 card that voting negative is the act that moves away from the politics of reactivity and opens itself up to the flux of life. Extend that we need to be able to affirm activities that give us joy. We need to affirm that kind of joyousness that we're looking for. That we have the best method for deconstructing forms of whiteness is by affirming life rather than engaging in dark solutions. He's trying to get out of this. Extend the that it reproduces black fungibility. The specific reason that he's linking it to this card is because using the language of negativity is a way that, and he's also omitting the source material of Afro-pessimism. That's a unique reason why he's always going to be biting into the whiteness under Lucy's, erasing any mention of anti-blackness and just reproducing whiteness. That means I'm always going to be the better method for deconstructing whiteness under the framework. And now go on to the method game. First, he's trying to say that I'm trying to create hoops that black debaters have to jump through, but all you have to do is warrant your arguments for why the judge should vote on methods. And even if you don't buy that, even if you drop that argument, there's no valid implications about reading this kind of div. Even if he doesn't win that, he still has to win the other four points of the overview. Extend that if you win the evaluate method, the methods are good. You identify the reasons why the speech act is bad because he purposely critiques speech transgressive. Insofar as he says that his method of rage is already transforming the base space. He's already doing good. He's already read his methods. He's already done rage within the round. So he shouldn't. So there's no reason why he should get the ballot. Why he should get the ballot. It's a unique reason why he should reject the ballot because he's rejecting the progressive power structure from the ballot. Instead, the second term that it means saying that their ballot needs their method needs the ballot to be successful applies to individuals who win the round plus or indivisible, and also it reinforces the hierarchical structures that the K is trying to deconstruct. And on the affect, extend that these are independent reasons why you should reject independent dissents and reason why you should reject his method on the role of ballot. Extend the first argument. These are completely dropped by by the way, the rage has to be spontaneous. You are constructing rage in something in a way that seems manufactured, which is bad. Under the rule is bad because your rage. Because rage is an emotional reaction response of something of injustice. It's very unlikely that you just get enraged for all of your affirms. So it's something you're characterizing rage as something that you can just gin up whenever that is completely respond to an independent reason why you should reject this method under the rule of value. Send me a second argument that affect is something that occurs, not something you can create on chance. It's clear that someone produced affect in order to win the round. These are reasons why you negate insofar as an individual decides to why his method will never work. Let's talk about joy for a sec. Go back onto the turns on the growth 7 part. Insofar, so he's going to try and extend the survival battle strategy argument that rage is a survival strategy for black folks, but insofar as he's extending this argument that that's a survival strategy, it means that they are trying to survive from oppression. That necessarily means that it is a reactive response to oppression. Joy is always going to be a better survival strategy because it doesn't allow whiteness to co-opt the survival strategy and control how black folks have to deconstruct whiteness. Joy is specifically a better method because whiteness is always telling black bodies that they are not worthy of joy, that they're not worthy of being happy, and specifically being joyous in the face of that is always going to be reaffirming themselves and engaging in that kind of joy is the best method to deconstruct whiteness. He's also conceding the argument as about why self-ownership necessarily has to come as a prerequisite in order to engage in rage in the first place. Our discourse in the round proves that you have to have some ownership over your own body in order to even engage in that kind of method. So this framing comes first.
2 minutes, bro.
He was quiet for a second. What?
What's the reason why you don't get a nib or something, or that Smith doesn't matter? Or are you just like I don't want my arguments or something? Okay, okay.
Order should be case, turn. So case with a lot of cross-apps. I'm sorry, I know cross-apps aren't the easiest thing to flow. There'll be a lot of cross-apps, mainly to the NC at first, and then we'll go on to the turns, parted turns, and then the overview turns. So it's going to be case proper, starting with framing. Then it'll be the parted turns, then the overview turns. Yeah. I will try to be very explicit about where to flow cross-apps and just like signposting and stuff. So.
Everybody ready? Okay.
Extend the world about everybody is performing another large engages in affective ways of deconstructing whiteness. Do you have full conceit of the second justification for why you should prefer our will over yours, which was the portable skills argument coming out of the one argument means that we control the internal thing to your will about ever being valuable. This was full conceited now. Let's go to the framing. You can extend the argument that we take outside of the subjectivity, which is what their NC relies on, which you've considered this an infinite take up to the entirety of your NC of that was full conceit of the one argument. You have also conceded that blackness is in a position of objectivity, which necessarily means that we don't have access to the NC framing, or the NC method means that you have to defer after the framing on the debate between self-ownership and affect. Now, you can, let's also go into the survival strategy net benefit. You can extend the survival strategy net benefit clean across you. Your only response to this in the last speech was that it is a linkage to your bronze evidence, but the argument that she goes for here is that black survival is literally something that is reactive. When we say, fuck that, you should be viewing black survival as something that is reactive. That is a proactive way to prevent oppression from happening. That is a way that we engage in the world, and what we call on black folks to engage in the world. That is not something that is reactive to oppression. So it's certainly also, this argument is certainly not unique. After the one they argue, continuously say things like you should use joy as a reaction to oppression, which means that you also link to this evidence. It's not an independent reason to drop the affirmative method now. Let's go to the terms proper review. Off the first term, you can cross by those arguments that they just made. When extending survival strategy, they take out the first term. Now your second term. The second turn now. Off the first turn, we say that you have conceded that you are a misreading of delusion. Delusion and say that all forms of negativity are bad rather than negative ontologies. But you have also conceded that nothing about the affirmative relies on Andrew Kolb's book. Don't let her get away with this recontextualization of what Kolb's theory is. Dark Delusion is a very specific book that proposes a very specific method that has no mention of blackness throughout the entire book. That is obviously not what the affirmative defends. Now, let's go to the overview turns. First, the lesson of this debate is that you can't just get up and reread your blocks on the two and argue. Have full conceded a method which is that when you say things like my method solves better for black racism as a white person, that necessarily breeds violence and breeds violence. This was the economy of gratitude dissent that we read in the 1AR. You can extend this as an independent reason to drop, and they don't respond to this at all throughout the entirety of the last speech, which means that we have a 100% strength of link to this argument, whereas they certainly don't get to claim that on any of their arguments. Also, your only response to the Smith evidence was that we should just have to warn our arguments, but we say you're missing the point here. Smith is saying that you should try to distance the discussion away from oppression. This was also distance the discussion away from oppression and create these sort of abstract rules. This is also a reason to drop you now. Your only other piece of offense in this debate is this argument that we should call for the ballot. You've conceded as the second point, which is that the ballot forces you to reflect upon your practices in the debate space, which means it is uniquely key now. It should be a very easy out ballot. So, yeah.
Congratulations to both debaters. It is a 3-0 for the affirmative from Kamiak.
I think that my bias will ballot, you're really not answering that second standard of how my ballot is used. I also think you're behind on the debate, especially with some of the arguments that you're making. I don't understand why you didn't. All the arguments that you've taken as I'm evaluating the round just gets back into a lot of the things he's talking about with this white ideology, right? You make think of these arguments on his method and why his method is bad. I think that's just a link back into everything that he says in the road about by you doing these things. You're afraid to engage in this conversation. Why don't we just engage in this conversation? And then I also think the stuff at the bottom of your case, I was thinking about rage and how rage is spontaneous. And I think you could have answered this a little bit better for me. Rage does not have to be spontaneous. One, you're not reading the definition of what rage is, and two, who says what rage looks like. How do you know his performance or his act isn't his way of showing what rage is and how he feels, right? You kind of push his feelings aside by telling him you can't feel this way, this is how you have to express rage, and you're not expressing it in the right manner inside this like debate round. And then there's one thing. Sorry. This thing that I can tell. Oh, and just like a comment for you. I think like in this round, there's like way too much going on. And I want to see like what your affirmative would like actually do, and you don't actually take the time to explain that to me. A lot of the arguments that she makes, you can literally answer that, at least for me, in very few words. Like her performance in itself is like what you tell me is bad. She's just giving you more links into like the things how you talk about and like the role of the ballot just by her standing up and performing the way that she did. And I think like you could easily get that across and say like these are the types of discussion we need to talk about. Like this is how my affirmative is different from I guess any other kind of like performative affirmative, I guess, like in this debate space, right? And why it's actually unique to like I would like to know why it's actually like unique to the person that's actually getting up there and doing this speech back.
If you're done, I have a
Yeah.
question about the method debate. So, if me like engaging in the method or like saying that the method is bad and then like providing a counter method is like not the like I'm just wondering how I should engage in the method.
I think
that
like
doesn't
you
like
should.
lead into it.
I think you can engage. First of all, I think engage in the method by saying like, hey, like this is the topic, right? Let's talk about like abolishing plea bargaining, but let's talk about it in the sense of the way like your 1AC is set up, right? Like you could have that discussion in cross-ex, so you know what your 1 and C may look like. That way you're at least like engaging him in his rage, but you still also get like this negative ground of actually like talking about the topic and how like these things may affect like the Black community, because some of like this rage and like some of like the I guess the warranted evidence that he reads is like a buildup of like these things that happen in the Black community, right? Like he's saying like you'll never really understand. No, you say like if we engage in these discussions, then Carly, right, you would be able to understand why I feel the rage I feel. And instead of stopping to like semi-engage in that discussion to understand his rage, like even if you do it across text to understand his rage, I think it'd give you like more negative ground, right? Like you want to get up here and talk about PC, I'll give you that ground to get up here and talk about PC. But here's the topic, like let's figure out like why I would want to more so talk about the topic, why that features you. Like you can kind of like turn it, right? Because you're losing some of your ground by him like not really talking about the topic in itself. He's just getting up there and talking about like why his identity matters to him. And I don't think anywhere in the AC he really links it back to like the actual topic in the healthy discussion.
So like I'm just like wondering how so should I like concede that like rage is a good method and then argue about what we would do if we're like
rage is a good method. You can let him have his rage, okay? But I would also find out like why are you so like is this space, because he does read like Smith card, right? That card, like if this space makes you so outraged, why are you penetrating it? Right? Especially when he says things like we need to not look at like this, I guess, white ideology. We need to not be under like this concept of white ideology. We need to show our outrage. So why are you even entering a space at this moment that's just going to cause rage, right? And then I think that would get you like your link back to like some of the stuff that you talked about in joy. Like why would you put your body in a space that would take away any kind of feeling of happiness? Or I would ask him, does your happiness derive off of winning the ballot? If it does, you guys can have like a different debate, right?
Okay, so you think like more understanding like why the rage is happening, and
Yeah.
then like it like engaging with like the method on that level,
Mhm.
and like, okay, so, yeah, that makes sense, right?
Right, because that's what his performance is about. But at the end of the day, I don't even really know what your performance is about. Like, get up here, you say you're going to play music, you might do this, and then like you play music, cross acts, but I don't even know like why you're playing like the particular song you're playing, or why you chose that song. Like, how does that make, like, I get you're performing, but like, how does that link back to anything? Like, what was the specific reason you decided to put music on during cross acts? Like, I don't know what that's for your performance, you know?
So then, so you vote on the offense that he gets off of like performing rage and like creating that affect?
Yeah, I buy into the affect stuff. I don't think you're like, right, the affect stuff, like, from what I understand of it, like he says it's interaction, right, of like, it could be like, I guess he said on 2 different levels, an object and a subject, right, or with the subject and the subject and the object and the object, however, and like, I would like for you to break that down a little bit more, like, in debate, especially if you're going for it, like, give it like a cleaner outlook. So then when it came to like evaluating, I'm like, okay, a subject and a subject, which is one of the examples, here you guys are, like the 2 subjects within the debate round, let me see how you guys are engaging with each other. And he says your type of engagement that you choose is a wrong type of engagement. We should have more of an engagement where we come to understanding each other as individuals, and I guess why we have the emotions we have, or why he has the rage he has, or why, you know, you feel the way you do, like with inside this debate, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, I ended up voting basically on the drops suggestion that like your alternatives can't be trusted, right? Like, because I mean, he basically says your white don't trust you for what you suggested, and you drop it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't vote for you, right? Like, and I think that the way to like just deal with that is like you're not running your ideas, you're running the ideas from other people that you've read, right? If they're Black authors, then it's not him trusting you, it's trusting other Black scholarship, and you're engaging with Black scholarship against other Black scholarship, like, and then he has to have a higher burden telling you why you can't be in that discussion when you're not reading you're reading Black authors. He has to tell you that you're like, as he did, he said, you didn't read these Black authors, you're misinterpreting it, right? Like, so you have to be able to know the subject matter that you're reading and engage it, and be very clear that you're not engaging in your ideas, you're engaging in these ideas, and he has to tell you why the ideas themselves that come from Black people are actually bad. That would be a way to engage and not get to the like, you're right, you suggested it, you lose, because you actually are engaging, you're reading Black literature, you're making every effort to understand that literature and apply it to, because I mean, he's right, there are lots of dead ground, right? Like there's a lot of people who might disagree with the premise of the app. You just have to, you know, point out who those are and then have an actual debate. It's just a debate about philosophy. He's presenting one philosophy about rage, you're presenting a competing philosophy that says that philosophy is bad or inadequate or, you know, turns in a particular way, and then you're having that debate. So I think that I would say further, the round is like, gets really like muddled because a lot of stuff is in a lot of different places.
Yeah.
My suggestion would be to have the one-off, and then all of the things that apply to the app, put them on the app, right? And put them on specific places on the app.
Yeah.
Like, just take the specific places that are actually on the app where he talks about survival strategies, and then that's where you probably should have put joy, right? Like, put it right there when he's talking about survival strategies, or some other places. I think that you have to, like, part of it is like, it becomes so much cross-application, there's gonna be a lot that's lost. So you might have been making a lot of arguments that just never get played in. Now, I would argue secondly, like, I think that the app, I think, should do some of the same thing, right? Like, you effectively drop the NC, but you don't. Like, you do apply it, but I think the cross-application is even late, right? Like, I just think ultimately, at first, the actual don't trust her argument that goes conceded is just conceded, right? So the way I can vote for the app. But I think that, I mean, you could have easily just said that on the NC. I mean, it would take me like 5-10 seconds to respond to it, because you're like, her understanding of choice is not choice. That's the whole subjective thing, right? Like, and doing that in the one, because maybe you did that in one area and I missed it, But like, I didn't get you doing that in the 1AR. I almost, it seems like, and maybe that's because they go all over the place, but I almost like get that you conceded the NC, right? And that's how it looked in my flow. And I'm like, yo, like, at least put something on it, especially because your case does kind of take that out, right? An extension of your case could take out the NC kind of cleanly. As it does in 2AR, it doesn't become a big deal issue. I still don't think I could have voted on it in terms of the way that you framed the debate, right? But it's more risky than it needs to be.
Understand.
I have a question about the I'm white and I can't read it. So do you think that if I would have responded to that, then how I debated on like the methods debate or like that debate, do you think that you could have voted for me there?
I think I would have had to now look at the debate, but I think you're behind on that as well. Right?
Okay.
Like I think it just makes it like, did you read it? I'm not Dark Delusian. There's nothing about me that, like he's saying that your counter method doesn't really match what isn't even responsive to what he's saying, right? That's the next layer of it. So I think that if you had, I think that if you were responding to rage on rage, right?
Yeah.
If your methods were simply directly engaging, as opposed to just offs that I have to count that cross apply, then I think you can get more. I think that you're even in the debate because you're actually proposing a counter method and you're trying to at least deal with the warrants of what he's saying, right?
Okay.
Because if you're attacking his case based on cross applying off cases, then you're not really dealing with the warrants of why is what is rage? How do I know how do I even know what it looks like if it looks different for different people, right? Like there are a lot of questions that the act really doesn't answer or doesn't have to answer because you're not directly engaging it. So at the end of the round, I vote for a method that I'm not sure what it does. I'm not sure what it does beside this particular debate round. I don't know why it's a prescription for Black people in general. Like there are a lot of questions that I have, right? But at the same time, because you're not engaging in that way, right? You're way behind on that debate too. So even if you had answered it, you'd have still been behind because you're behind on the philosophy and you're not applying it directly to the act.
Okay, so do you think it would have helped if I just just put the signposted the arguments to the methods debate on
the methods because you're having a competing method, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that it's better if you're this method bad, here's why this method bad, here's this alternative that answers it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that doing that on that debate, to me, makes it cleaner, right?
Yeah.
Because the way you're using your counter method is as terms to the case.
Yeah.
Right? So, because you're not even having a counter plan, different method, and then do that comparison. You're looking at it as direct turns to the AC.
Yeah.
So instead of having turns to the AC on an off case, turns to the AC as an underview, right? Or responses to the AC as an underview, and a few responses on the AC, why not just put it all on the AC? Because it's supposed to directly engage the AC, right?
Okay.
So I think that, to me, that would have made the round, I would have understood the round better because it would have made it more smoother than a bunch of cross applications. And then you can deal with the warrants point by point, and you're not, you drop survival strategies, right? Effectively, right? You cross apply, but do you deal with the warrants of survival strategies? Do you deal with he could have gone for the first advantage that wasn't survival strategies, I forget what that was, but he ended up just collapsing to survival strategies, right? So he had other options that he could have won the round on that he did not use because he did not have to. Because it didn't seem like you were directly engaging what he said, that's all.
Okay, yeah.
Cool. One piece of feedback for each of y'all, then I'll go into the RFT. For Niko, it seems like, especially as the debate continues, the method of rage becomes more just purely academic theorization rather than embodiment of performance. I would try to carry that through a little bit more. I think there are things that subtly connect to it, but I'm not sure if that's just me assigning meaning to things that there isn't actually that meaning, or if those are intentional, as previously mentioned. So just a little bit more on what you are doing, what it means to engage in this rage, how you are engaging in the rage, rather than just the rage being intellectually good, or in terms of a method. And then for Carly, I think the 2N has a little bit of an issue because I think I think there's two methods coming out of what you're saying. Like one is joy and one is self-ownership, and like they're kind of just like split. But it should be like clear what it means to negate. I think they probably could complement each other in some way, or like it just like I think it fragments the debate where like all the AF offense is coming from one central point, but when you are comparing what you are doing to what the app is doing, the way you are doing it, it only applies to part of the things that you're reading, whether that's the self-ownership stuff or the joy stuff. But anyways, for the top level framing debate, I think Niko is right with the Smith evidence about forcing to jump through hoops. I think the 2N argument supercharges this in my mind, because it's like, even if they're winning Smith, like the four other things they have to do answer this, which is just like, you are like, just word your argument seems to be more than what you're saying, and I think the articulation needed to be different on that. Like, I think it might be like if you're engaged, like I think the argument would be something like, I'm not imposing these burdens on you when you opt to center the debate on methods. That then pushes the burden for you to justify your approach or something like that.
Okay.
Some sort of argument like that would be helpful. So yeah, when the AF is winning the top level framing debate, I don't really need to evaluate anything else, because the economy of gratuity argument, that flips the direction of any impact coming out of the 2N. So it's either the case that the AF method is good and I vote AF under the roll of the ballot, or the neg method is good, but you're advocating for the neg method is bad, meaning I would still vote AF under the roll of the ballot. So the kind of last thing I'm starting resolving is there's a few arguments that are taken as like independent voters, but like there's not any analysis about why they're alone sufficient to vote. They seem pretty clearly just like disadvantages to a method that are being power take, and I still think that even if you're winning, if you are winning those arguments, they're independently sufficient to reject the AF method, the economy of gratuity stuff, that is being conceded still flips the direction of the impact on this. So either AF method is good or neg method is good, so I vote AF.
I would ask